Hey, how's it going, guys? If you or somebody you know is tired of being miserable, then this is the video for you. Today, I'm going to be going over 11 cognitive distortions or things that your brain does that messes with the way that you see the world. After I explain those to you, I'll be giving you my own personal experience and things that I've done that have helped me a lot. The first distortion is known as filtering. So let's say your boss calls you in for a performance review, and they do nothing but compliment you the entire time, but at the end, they give you one small critique that you can do in order to improve yourself. Rather than focusing on the 99.9% of the meeting that went well, you decide to focus on the one critique that they have and take it as you just completely failed. Stop it. The next is discounting the positive. This is similar to filtering, but it basically any compliment or positive thing that you get from somebody, you automatically assume it has no value. Meaning, if somebody gives you a compliment, instead of taking it with grace, you say, oh, they're just being nice, or you say no, and then you just keep pushing back on it. Compliments are gifts. Nobody likes when you don't accept the gift that they're trying to give you. Just take it, because it's genuine. People don't just hand out compliments to be a-holes. Polarization is similar to all or nothing thinking. Let's think of it from a dieting perspective. Let's say you want to go on a diet, but the night before you forgot to prep your food. So instead of trying to find healthy alternatives, you go to Wendy's and get a triple Baconator, and then after that you feel bad about it, and then you just assume that healthy eating's not for you or you completely failed, and so you completely fall off track instead of just getting right back on. This one is particularly tough to deal with because we have a hard time of comprehending the fact that consistency is the ultimate driver, not perfection, towards our goals. You're going to fall off every now and again. Understand it. It's okay. Just get right back on. If you're miserable, you more than likely overgeneralize a lot of things. Let's say you're running late for work and you hit a red light. You left on time like normal, but you hit a red light and you hit some traffic. Then all of a sudden, you get to work, you're late, and all you tell yourself is, I am so unreliable, or I am always late, or nothing ever goes my way. Is that really true? Be honest with yourself. Don't let your brain trick you into thinking something like this. Jumping to conclusions is one that I was probably the most guilty of for the main period of time I was miserable, which I put about 21 to 25. Now, jumping to conclusions is insanely prominent, especially in immature relationships. It's when, say, your partner comes home or, shows up at a date, whatever, they just have a serious look on their face. You automatically assume they're either A, mad at you, or B, something's wrong, rather than the most likely option, they're human and they just had a bad day. So instead of directly confronting them and just asking how their day was, you stay to yourself, you don't ask, or you ask if they're mad, they say no, and then you just keep asking, and then that all of a sudden leads to a fight anyway. Every single situation in life is completely different and unique, so you should treat every single one as such. Catastrophizing is similar to jumping to conclusions, only the main difference is you basically go to the worst possible scenario that could possibly happen, especially when it's highly improbable. If you're unsure of which type of thing that goes on in your head when this happens, imagine this is whenever you're asking what if a lot, and also what if and then what. And you just go down a loop and a ladder of a bunch of different possible scenarios that are more than likely never going to happen. And if you really think about the rest of your life, has any of that ever actually played out how you thought it would? No. Control fallacies are stories that you tell yourself that could go either way in regards to how much control you have in your life. Let's say that you didn't get something done at work and your first initial response is, of course I didn't. It was loud, traffic was bad, nobody respects my personal boundaries. How can anybody ever get things done in that environment? It's things like that that are actually 100% completely in your control that you don't turn and reflect back on yourself. This one's dangerous because it makes the world look like it's out to get you and that it's not fair and that you have absolutely no power. This is the number one thing that for years kept me stuck and not improving to become who I wanted to be. The next is you should hit the like button and comment if you've experienced any of these before. So the fallacy of fairness is whenever you look at things on a scale of how fair something is. This happens most that I've seen in relationships with people that I know, where everything in the relationship is like a transaction. It's like, oh, it's only fair that you cook dinner since I let the dogs out and cleaned and everything. When you try to view everything in life as a fair or unfair scale, you're going to be miserable, because nothing in life is fair and everything happens in a weird way that we don't have an explanation for. So stop putting it on a scale of whether something's fair or not, because nothing in life is fair, as cliche as that sounds. Shoulds are anxiety promoters. We always tell ourselves how things should be whenever they don't happen the way that we thought they were. But the problem is, this leads us to feeling guilty, disappointed, victimized, let down, frustrated. And the truth is, everything is exactly how it's supposed to be based on the actions that we've taken. And since we know a lot of things in life are unfair, then there should be no shoulds. And if you take should out of your vocabulary, you can start actually being and living life in accordance to either A, who you are, or B, who you strive to become. Our emotions run pretty much everything we do. Where that becomes a problem is that we oftentimes tell ourselves that because we feel a certain way, then that must mean that whatever happened to me is a fact. When we try to reason with our emotions, we tend to believe it's a reflection of reality. So whenever we feel sad or upset or angry about something, we now see life as this big ball of misery, anxiety, and dread. So what this then does is this causes us to think that future events are determined by how we feel. And if we go based on how we feel all the time, we're just going to run around in circles. It's what I did pretty much most of my 20s up until about a year and a half ago. And I made very little to no progress until I started seeing not being able to rely on my emotions and understanding that they are always changing and always adapting to the things that are coming in from my outside environment. I can take better control of my emotions and the things that I do that ultimately move me towards a goal that I want to. The fallacy of change is the belief that everybody is just going to change them in order to fit your own personal desires or goals. You see this happen a lot in relationships where either the boyfriend or the girlfriend, they do certain things that try to detract the other partner from doing what they want to do. So let's say homeboy doesn't want to go out on a certain night, but homegirl does. Well, homeboy will do things that make her either feel bad or try to convince her not to go out, even though that's what she wants to do. And you want her to stay there because you don't feel like getting ready and you just want to be lazy, but she can't go be her own person. That's the fallacy of change. It's the belief that we can change other people to fit our own desire and goals. Now, what can we do in order to become more aware of these things and actually learn how to work with them and fix them? The first starts, it's called metacognition. You might have heard this, but basically it's thinking about your thoughts and the things that you are putting into your mind. If an event or something's happening and it's upsetting you, take a step back, feel the feeling physically, and notice what types of thoughts are going on in that moment. They're going to be supercharged with emotion and you're not going to want to do it, and it's going to feel completely justified as to why you feel the way you do. But take a step back and try to look at a much larger picture based on the previous things that have happened in your life and what this could actually mean and what this could actually be trying to tell you. But if you think about yourself 10 years ago, think about how much different you were then. So you're going to change so much over the next 10 years that you have to understand that the things you worry about now really aren't even going to play out at all over that span, especially considering most of them are just maybe a couple days worth of problems that you'll eventually be over and you'll be able to move through. Once you have started to take a grasp on these types of things, the second, and this one's obvious, but work out, go to the gym, get in shape, do things that are going to also get your body moving in the right direction. Do things that are going to cause your body to also express itself, because how the body feels, it affects the mind, and vice versa. So you have to have everything working. And if you want the mind to work better, you have to have the body working better. Clean out your filter. So your brain is a filter through which events come out from the outside world, come into your brain, and then you perceive them and filter them and put them where they need to go in your head in order for you to be able to process them. Well, in order to clean that filter out, just like a filter in your house, whenever that has to be replaced, you have to get everything out on paper or something physical. Journal, or just sit with yourself and talk with yourself. I do an exercise where I basically take 30 minutes with just a journal, no phone, no nothing, and I just sit. I'm not allowed to sleep, not allowed to close my eyes. I just have to sit there and be as bored as possible. What normally happens is things that I have been sitting with or trying to process normally start to actually come out. And then I can actually process them, write them down, see how ridiculous they sound, or if there's some sort of connection that I have to make in order for these things to make sense. Doing this removes all the clutter from your head, gets it out on paper, and then you can actually find and use what is really going to be useful for you. Replace your absolutes. So anything in your mind that is basically black and white thinking needs to be erased, because how many of the things in the world are a massive gray area? Nothing in life is black and white, but we treat our thoughts in the ways that we perceive the world as being permanent and completely black and white. You have to replace these absolutes and start to think in terms of under what situation might this be the case, because not everything applies to every situation, because most situations are completely unique and your life experiences are completely unique. And because of that, you have to understand everybody else's is also unique. And since that's the case, nothing can be absolute. So be flexible with the way you see things and the words and the vocabulary that you use whenever you communicate what's going on in the outside world to yourself. The last question that you need to ask yourself is there any evidence that backs up these negative thoughts or these thoughts that are causing misery? More times than not, there's not going to be any direct evidence unless it's a past experience that you keep telling yourself about and keep repeating. If that's the case, then you need to process that and you need to look at all of the scenarios and the inputs that went into that so that you can figure out, well, what do I need to change? Because if I just change a couple of these things, then it's not going to play out the same in the future. That's why maturity is a big thing, because maturity comes from whenever you realize the things in your past, you work on those things, and then you solidify, okay, since I fixed those, it shouldn't never happen like that again. And I just used a should. It won't ever happen like that again. Because, once again, every situation is unique. Treat them all as such. Sauce me a follow on Twitter and subscribe, because I want to help you figure your shit out. Thanks.